I could hardly believe my eyes when that brazen man walked up to our table without a hint of hesitation. He grabbed my unfaithful wife's hand and, with a mocking grin, declared, "Why stay with this weakling? Let's dance first, and then I'll show you what a real man can do." Keeping my composure, I swiftly executed a move I had practiced countless times before. A sickening crunch echoed through the room, followed by his agonized screams as he collapsed to the floor. The restaurant, an upscale establishment, exuded understated elegance. Dim lighting bathed the polished mahogany tables in a warm glow while soft piano music played in the background. It was the perfect setting for power lunches and lavish celebrations, a world I once thrived in. Yet tonight it felt like a gilded cage. Amal, my wife, sat across from me, undeniably beautiful. Her dark hair was carefully styled, and her lips matched the sleek gown that hugged her figure. Yet despite all her grace and poise, there was a chilling emptiness in her eyes, a void I couldn't ignore. We had been married for years, but the last 6 months had created an undeniable distance between us. Late nights at her law firm, cryptic messages, and unexplained absences had formed a rift. I had hoped tonight might heal that divide, a chance to rekindle what we once had. But instead, I found myself as nothing more than a spectator, watching the woman I loved slip further away. As we sipped our wine, a shadow suddenly fell over our table. I looked up to see a man in his mid-30s, tall, muscular, and radiating arrogance. His perfectly tailored suit couldn't hide the smugness that oozed from him. His piercing blue eyes locked onto Amal, completely disregarding my presence. "Amal," he said. He spoke smoothly, his voice a calculated blend of charm and condescension. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Amal froze, her glass suspended midair, her eyes flicking between him and me before she finally spoke. "Lucas," she stammered, her voice betraying more than she likely intended. "What are you doing here?" "Enjoying the city," he replied with a grin. To my disbelief, he reached out, grabbed her hand, and with utter disdain added, "Why stay with him? Let's dance first, and I'll show you what I can offer." The restaurant fell silent. I could feel the weight of the other diners' stares, their curiosity thick in the air. Amal attempted to pull her hand away, but Lucas held it firm. His audacity sparked a fierce anger within me. I stood up slowly, the sound of my chair scraping against the floor cutting through the silence. "You have 3 seconds to let go of her hand," I said, my voice calm but laced with danger. Lucas sneered. "And if I don't?" The answer was immediate. A sickening crunch shattered the hush of the restaurant as bones snapped under my grip. Lucas crumpled to the floor, clutching his shattered hand. His cries of pain echoed through the room, drawing every eye to our table. Amal gasped, her face a mix of shock and fear. Other diners froze, staring in disbelief. "Magnus," she whispered, her voice trembling as she grabbed my arm. "What are you doing?" I ignored her, crouching to meet Lucas's pain-filled gaze. "Leaning in close," I whispered, my voice devoid of sympathy. "This is just the beginning. You made a mistake tonight, and I will make sure you regret it." His eyes burned with rage, his face twisted in pain. "You'll pay for this," he snarled through clenched teeth. I turned to Amal, who remained frozen in her seat. "Let's go," I ordered, my tone sharp. She hesitated, her wide eyes shifting between me and Lucas. "No," I snapped. Slowly, she rose, her heels clicking against the floor as she followed me out. Behind us, hushed whispers among the diners swelled into a low buzz of speculation. The drive home was suffocating. The silence in the car pressed down on us, thick and heavy. Amal sat stiffly, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I could see her mind racing, scrambling for an explanation. When we pulled into the garage, I shut off the engine and turned to face her. "Talk," I demanded, my voice slicing through the stillness. She flinched, her composure unraveling. "Magnus, I don't know what you want me to say," she murmured, eyes fixed on her lap. "I want the truth," I said, leaning in closer. "Who is he? How long has this been going on?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. She had drained me of any remaining sympathy long ago. "It's complicated," she began. I let out a bitter laugh. "Let me make it simple for you. Either you tell me everything right now, or I'll find out on my own. And trust me, you won't like how that turns out." Her shoulders slumped. The fight left her. 6 months, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It started 6 months ago. The confession hit me harder than I had expected, even though I had long suspected it. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "What was tonight supposed to be?" I asked, my voice unnervingly steady. "A chance to humiliate me in front of everyone? To rub it in my face?" "No," she whispered. She sobbed, her voice breaking. "I didn't know he'd be there, Magnus, I swear." I cut her off sharply. "Stop. I saw the way you looked at him, the way you froze when he spoke. You knew." She covered her face with her hands, her sobs filling the cramped car. I stared ahead, my mind racing. I needed answers, but more importantly, I needed a plan. The next morning, I sat in my office, the Geneva skyline stretching before me. A mix of anger and cold determination churned inside me. Betrayal coursed through my veins like poison, but I refused to let it consume me. If Amal and Lucas thought they could walk away without consequence, they were in for a rude awakening. I started with Lucas. A simple online search revealed his carefully curated social media presence. Photos of luxury cars, private jets, and designer suits painted the picture of a man basking in wealth. But beneath the polished exterior, cracks were beginning to show. Failed business ventures, lawsuits, and whispers of shady dealings suggested that Lucas was not as untouchable as he liked to pretend. I reached out to a network of associates, people in finance who owed me favors and specialized in exposing fraud. Within hours, I had a damning report on Lucas. Bank records, unpaid loans, and reckless investments painted the portrait of a man living far beyond his means. It was enough to ruin him. But I wasn't finished yet. Next, I focused on Amal. While she pretended everything was normal, I quietly gathered evidence of her affair, emails, text messages, even photos of her and Lucas together. I stored everything in a secure digital envelope. This wasn't just about revenge. It was leverage. If she chose to fight me during the divorce, I wouldn't hesitate to use it. The final step was to ensure their downfall played out publicly. I arranged for Lucas to be invited to an exclusive charity gala, one attended by Geneva's most influential figures. At the same time, I ensured that the dossier detailing his fraudulent activities reached the hands of a journalist hungry for scandal. By the end of the evening, Lucas's financial crimes and deceitful schemes were splashed across the front pages of newspapers all over Switzerland. Amal faced her reckoning when I handed her the divorce papers. She tried to resist, but the evidence left her no room to argue. Thanks to our prenuptial agreement, she walked away with nothing. And in the court of public opinion, her social demise was sealed. The fallout came swiftly. High society scandal, Lucas exposed for fraudulent schemes, screamed one headline. Another laid bare every sordid detail, financial crimes, extortion, and the systematic exploitation of wealthy women. Lucas's once impeccable reputation crumbled, and he vanished into hiding. Authorities launched a full investigation, freezing his accounts and seizing his assets. Former business partners and allies abandoned him, eager to escape the fallout. Amal wasn't spared either. The whispers in elite circles grew louder. Friends disappeared. Invitations stopped coming. Her family, embarrassed by the scandal, distanced themselves, leaving her to face the consequences alone. When we met in court to finalize the divorce, she was a mere shell of the woman I had once known. The grace and confidence she once carried had been replaced by exhaustion and quiet desperation. As we stepped outside the courtroom, she spoke softly, her voice trembling. "Magnus, I know I hurt you," she whispered, her voice fragile. "But was all of this really necessary?" I met her gaze, my expression unwavering. "You made your choices, Amal. And choices have consequences. Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded silently, then turned and walked away without another word. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken anger, now felt calm, peaceful. I focused on my work, closing major deals and expanding my company's influence across Europe. The sting of betrayal still lingered, but it had begun to fade, replaced by clarity and purpose. One evening, I attended another charity gala, this time with a newfound sense of quiet confidence. As I moved through the crowd, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. Turning, I found myself face to face with a woman who radiated elegance and quiet sophistication. "Mr. Adler," she greeted warmly. "I'm Isabel, a historian. I've heard a great deal about your work. It's impressive." We spent hours in conversation. Her wit and intellect were a refreshing contrast to the shallow interactions I had grown accustomed to. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something real, a reminder that, despite life's hardships, there was still beauty to be found. Later that night, standing on the balcony of my home, I looked out at the city lights stretching into the distance. I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. Trail had wounded me deeply, but it had also forged me into something stronger. Raising a glass of wine to the night sky, I whispered the words that had become my mantra. "Pain sharpens us. Strength shapes us." As I turned to go inside, I left one final thought hanging in the cool night air.